Okay. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, my lovely sisters. Can we press mute, sisters? Okay. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Rabish, I'm going to start off with Assalamu alaikum, sisters. I really didn't realize that I was muted there for a second when I was trying to mute the other sisters. I accidentally muted myself. Apologies for that. So let's start again. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, like it says on the slide, today I will be doing a session on managing our children's negative thinking. I wanted to follow on from Coach Tahmina's session last week where she talked about our thoughts, the ones that are where they come from, and she talked about how thoughts we act of our feelings that come from thoughts that we believe. And she talked about how you can help yourself. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can help our children. We are, after all, the shepherd of our flock. We are their leaders, and we are here to support them and teach them skills and tools to manage themselves, look after themselves. Often we are caught up in the day-to-day physically, feeding them, taking care of them, taking care of their health, but we also have to help them, support them, take care of their mental well-being too. Sisters, please mute yourself as you come in. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Let me just check this. Anybody else? Thank you. Where was that? Okay, so in terms of looking after their mental health, part of looking after their mental health is actually supporting them to speak positively about themselves. And I have come across this a lot with clients. Even I'm a mother of 4 kids myself. I've got teenagers and children ranging between toddler to teenagers. So it is something that we have to deal with as parents. Sorry, I'm just going to mute somebody else. Please, sisters, unmute yourselves. I'm sorry, mute yourselves. Okay. So how many of you sisters, pop it on the chat room, you struggle with your child's negative thinking? What kind of things that do they say, and what are your struggles? I just wanted to put it out there just to see where everybody's at. You can private message me if you don't want to put it on the if you can private message me if you like. So Jiba saying you do struggle with your child's negative thinking. What kind of things does your son or daughter say? What's the big thing that really bothers you? Oh, so they say you don't listen. Oh, so they believe your 6-year-old overthinks everything. Yeah, I have one of those. She's turned 7 yesterday. Okay, so another sister saying the child's constantly complaining it's not fair, so does this and then doesn't get time. Another sister saying my child struggles with academic achievements, feels he's not good enough. Yes, we come across that because they compare themselves to their friends sometimes. Sometimes it could have been something someone else said. Okay, this is going quite fast. Let me see what it says. They're feeling that they're not good enough. Another one will complain about school. Another one saying, I don't have friends. My friends favoritize others. Life isn't fair. I'm not good enough. They get easily distracted and cause delays, chores and timekeeping. They complain that you're too strict. They complain that they hate routine. Yeah, these are especially about, excuse me, sister, can you mute yourself? Sister on the iPhone who just joined recently. Okay, sorry. It just breaks it up if I'm constantly having to mute everybody. So if you can please kindly mute yourself, that would really help. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh, okay, so these are common, you know, thoughts that children have because it is related to what's going on in their lives. Children really want to just, much like adults, they don't know. I mean, they just want to do what they want to do. They don't necessarily want to maintain routines. They don't want to listen to you because they've got other ideas because Allah's given them free will. But of course, we want that to raise responsible, resilient children, and part of that is teaching them to not always be led by their desires. But when they don't get what they want or when they feel unhappy, they sometimes develop negative chatter, which may have come from waswas, from themselves, from something someone else has said, from the way maybe even you've responded to them. And that can put them in a rut. And how you help them, it starts initially, you have to think about yourself. You think it's often hard to manage our own thoughts about ourselves. But then when we have to deal with our children's negative thinking in the midst of, you know, taking them to school, teaching them tarbiyah, teaching them all sorts of other things, feeding them, everything, it sometimes you know, it sometimes gets put on the back burner. But this is something we need to give a lot of energy to, especially when they can be really hard on themselves. Like you're saying, like life isn't unfair. One of the children saying, they just don't feel good enough, especially when they're struggling with, you know, different achievements with their peers. I myself have children of different abilities, and then they compare amongst themselves. I've had clients who've had to deal with those kind of issues. I've had, you know, people come to me, talk about their child being constantly negative, no matter what you say, and how do you deal with it in the face of that? And as hard as you try to stay positive, you start getting worried and you start feeling overwhelmed, that they will always be negative. And if you believe that I had a client say to me, well, my daughter's always going to have a hard life because she's always so negative. And then if you're parenting your child from that point of view, think about how you approach it. It's going to be quite negative, right? And I had a client say to me, well, let's face it, if you believe that if my child, you know, lives life through glass half empty, everything, you know, she's focusing on what there's not, like not focusing on what she has, she's going to have a hard life. She's going to be surrounded by negativity, and she's going to, you know, and you yourself as a parent, not your child's got the negative thinking, but you're thinking, well, you know what, this is her, she's constantly like this, or this is him, they're constantly like this, and they're just going to have hard life. And so then you put pressure on yourself to teach them not to, but then you just don't know what to do because it makes you feel so anxious. But then sometimes you get so frustrated, you're asking them why they're so negative in the midst of trying to encourage them to be more positive. But instead of listening to you, they just dig their heels in and insist on being negative. Have any of you been in that kind of position? Or does this resonate, my sisters? Okay, so one of the sisters saying her son has ADHD and he's 3, and people say that their ADHD kids lie a lot, and I'm scared I may not know how to help them. Well, hang in there, sis. You don't know what the future holds, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not burden with you with more than you can cope. Allah knows you're the best parent for that child, and when the time comes, you will know what to do. Okay, I'm going to carry on. So when your child just digs their feet in, and like some of you said, oh my God, I've got quite a few people saying yes, yes, yes. They just, no matter what you try, they just, and you're asking them why. You know, you're constantly asking, why are you so negative? We're trying this, I'm trying different things. You've been to parenting courses and tried, you know, whatever they've suggested, but he or she is just adamant in, insists on being really like negative. And sisters, please mute yourselves as you come in. Thank you. And then what happens with that is that sometimes we get frustrated and it impacts our own emotions. And then you're left with feeling like they'll never change. This is it. This is who they are. And that's it. I'm not going, you know, I'm just gonna have to deal with a child who's always negative. And that can be quite demoralizing for you as a parent, because you start thinking, what do you start thinking then, sisters? When that happens to you, and those of you who are in that situation, how do you feel? I'm gonna try and make this today a bit more interactive. You feel like a failure, okay? And I have had that. I've had many clients come to me, say that they're frustrated. Yes, one sister, as you're saying, is frustrated. Another sister saying she feels like a failure. Why do you feel like a failure, sister? Because you feel like you're a bad mom. Because what happens then is, and correct me if I'm wrong, you'll feel like if your child's not positive, then you've done something wrong. And that's not necessarily the case, but you end up walking around with a dark cloud hovering you, and you're absorbed in your child's negative thinking because you think you're a bad mom because you can't help them be positive. They're not being positive. But our children are not an extension of us. They're not a reflection of us. Sisters, please mute yourself as you come in. And we need to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them free will because they are an entity in their own right. But it's just, one of the sisters saying is that if I can't rectify it, it's too late. It's never late, sis. Even if your child is an adult, and I have coached with parents who are adults, it's, you know, it's different. You might have to support them in a different way, but it's never too late. You, as a mother, you have such amazing capacity to influence your child. And I'll just hang in there. I'll show, and then I'll give you some tips on how to do that. But first, I wanted to set the scene, and I just wanted to have an understanding of where we are within the group. We start worrying, yeah, and in that worrying we have an awful feeling often, like one of the sisters saying, we feel like a failure, we feel frustrated, and that permeates our parenting, that impacts our parenting. You just don't know what to do because you've tried everything, and like one of the sisters saying, you feel like, oh my gosh, is it too late? And then when you think it's too late, when you do eventually parent them, you end up parenting them harshly. Correct me if I'm wrong, sisters. Is this something that you find yourself in? You really want to support them, but then the fear, the worry that it's just too late, you come at it more harshly with them. It's not what you want, but that's just all you feel like that's what might work. And it's actually counterproductive. And what I would say is, first of all, whilst you can't control your child because Allah gave them free will, they are not an extension of yourself. They are not a reflection of who you are, despite what society tells you, or what your family might have told you, what the community has told you, what, you know, historically people have said. Bring it back to Quran and Sunnah. Your children are an entity in their own right. They are not a reflection of you. They are, you know, but you can't control them. Imagine you had control over them, sisters. Every wrong that they did, you would be accountable for. Do you want that on your neck? We as parents, adults, individuals, we're managing our own emotions and our own mistakes, and managing, you know, we all make mistakes, we all sin, we're managing that. Do you want the added responsibility of all your children? I've got 4 children now. No, thank you. But Allah's given me in a position of leadership position as the shepherd of my flock, like you. And you, what is your role? You influence them. But take away the pressure that comes from, oh no, they're reflection in me. Oh no, I failed. Oh no, you know, they'll never learn. And you, as a mother, understand and appreciate and take on board the immense ability to influence. You know, don't knock it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose you, out of everybody in the world, to be the parent to that child or those children, because you are the best person for that child. And although you may not like the fact of, you will probably want a more positive child, I've been there. But the fact that your child is negative is something you can handle, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us that He doesn't burden a soul with more than it can bear. The fact of the situation is you can handle it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us that. You may not like it, you may not like how it feels, you may not like how, what thinking you have around it, but those thinking, the fact that you might think, oh, I failed as a parent, oh, they're going to turn into bad, bad people, they're gonna always have negativity around them, they're not going to be resilient because they can't cope, they're always negative. Whatever those negative thoughts you're having, that some of you have just, some of you private messaged me, some of you put it on the chat, those thoughts, are they real? Are they facts? Even if that's happened in the past, does it make it fact? There you go. No, this is just an opinion. You have to differentiate between fact and opinion. And once you can do that, the next step is take away your negative thinking. I know many parents, many clients, I have said to them, the best way you do it is by influencing your child. And they're like, no, not my child. They're so negative about everything. And what have you done there, sisters? You've lost hope. Having good expectations that your children can change and will change will permeate your interactions with them in your behavior, your words, your body language. But when you lose hope, your children will feel it too, and they lose hope within themselves. And they'll feel like you've given up on them, lost hope in them, and then they will internalize that. It will come across in your impatience and your frustrations if it doesn't come across in your words. And you have to believe in the certainty in Allah that you are the shepherd of the flock. And like I said, after all, in His innate wisdom, He chose you to be the mother, putting you in a position best able to influence and support them. And if you think about yourself, all of us, our minds can sometimes become a battlefield when we focus on all the things that are going wrong in our lives. So the same thing can happen to your child, but they don't have the tools to pull themselves out of it. And that's where you come in. And you're like, you may be thinking, how? I've tried so many different things, but nothing works, because they'll always be so negative. And that's where I'll tell you, sisters, to stop. I've been there. I know what it's like. But the only way you can possibly influence your child is if you adopt a positive opinion about them. When your child is feeling down, unproductive, not achieving in, like one of the sisters says, the academics, feeling like everything is impossible, whatever you say, no, we're going to school, we're going to go on holiday trip, it's going to be boring. I remember one of my sons was saying, so dead, everything was so dead. And in the space of that, and generally when they, oftentimes sisters, when they're talking like that, they are having very negative, they're speaking very negatively about themselves in their own minds. We're not always aware of it. That's why we have to be the detectives. Whether they talk it, the body language, we have to pick up on it. So what happens in that situation is, when you're frustrated and you ask them why they're so negative, what they do is they blame themselves for disappointing you. When you feel like, oh no, they should be more positive because their cousin is or their friends are, I've been in a situation in the past where I have looked at my children's peers and I thought, okay, why can't they be more positive like so-and-so's son? And it's very easy to do. But when you say they should be or act like they should be more positive, they feel judged for not being like the child you want them to be. And even when you don't say anything, your body language gives away your disappointment.
Something's happened to the sound. We can't hear you anymore. Okay, inshallah, girls.
It's okay, I've managed it. Sorry.
Okay.
If I can ask sisters to mute themselves as they come in, or Tahmina, if you're here, if you can ask other sisters to, shall I just
You need to make me co-host that I can
yeah,
mute them.
sorry. It's just while I'm muting sisters, accidentally muted myself. This happened a couple of times. Bear with me one moment. Where are you, Tahmina? There you are. Let me make you co-host. Bear with me, ladies. And I'll just make host. There you go. I've made you host.